As we have very little time, I would ask you to be precise and to the point, but don't forget to introduce yourself. I'll start with Nureddin.
Madam Mogherini, given the fact that you have contacts with all parties in the region, do you see the end of this crisis very soon, or as some ministers said this morning, given the fact that there are a lot of problems for many, many years between some member states of the region, that the crisis is going to be long?
You know me, I know I'm an optimist. I have to say that this time I see the depth of the crisis more worrying than any time before. I also think, though, that there is an interest in all the actors around the Gulf to find a way to solve these tensions through dialogue and finding a form of cooperation. If you look at the security ties, if you look at the family ties, if you look at the double citizens, if you look at the economic relations, if you look at the ways in which the region is interconnected on a daily basis from energy to security, I repeat myself, you realize that there is no real alternative than cooperation in the Gulf. This is true inside the GCC. In the European Union, we believe this is true even beyond the GCC, but this is definitely not for today, apparently. So, indeed, it doesn't seem to be a crisis that is ready to be solved tomorrow. But if you look at it rationally, all parties, seen from our point of view, all parties would have a strong interest in defining a quick and political solution to these tensions together around a negotiating table, as I said, without precondition, and counting on the excellent mediating efforts of the Emir of Kuwait that has our full support. I discussed with the Foreign Minister of Kuwait in these recent days, and I am personally, as you said yourself, in contact with the foreign ministers of the region, from Saudi Arabia to Qatar to the Emirates and further beyond. Let me add that we are extremely worried for the possible spillover effect that these tensions could have, both in the Horn of Africa, in Africa at large, in some parts of Asia, in the Middle East, obviously in Libya. Our strong plea is to our friends in the Gulf is to make reason prevail and find a way to solve any dispute or differences that we understand, and in some cases we share, to find a solution out of these tensions.
Thanks, Maya. Robin Emmett from Reuters. On Iraq, was there appetite in the Council today for a stabilization mission, and what would be the next steps if so? Thank you.
Thanks for the perseverance. You asked me the same question this morning. I rightly said to you that I would have answered after the discussion, so I appreciate you coming back on that. As I said, the decision we took today is to explore, to examine the deployment of an EU security sector reform advice and assist team. So this is the decision we have taken, to explore this possibility of deployment rapidly in these coming months, to have an assist and advice team to accompany the Iraqi authorities on their security sector reform. This is the next step we're going to take. As I said, this is happening in response to a request by the Iraqi government and authorities, and this is going to be done in cooperation with the other international partners. And I could not elaborate on further steps, but this is the next step we're going to take, and I hope this can be put in place rapidly enough, hopefully in the coming months, so that we can also in the security sector reform provide all our advice and assistance to the Iraqi authorities that are facing a complicated time, as I said, both on the humanitarian, on the development, on the demining, on the recovery of the liberated areas. The European Union is already doing a lot. We are ready to do more also on the security sector reform.
Alix.
Bonjour, Alix Ricard de l'AFP, l'agence France Presse. Il semblerait qu'il y aura une discussion au Conseil européen jeudi sur les sanctions économiques contre la Russie. avec une présentation de l'évaluation de la situation sur le terrain par la France et l'Allemagne, et une recommandation est-ce que vous pouvez confirmer, donner un peu de détails sur comment ça va se passer et le renouvellement, si vous pensez qu'effectivement c'est dans les tuyaux. Merci.
Ce n'était pas un point que les ministres ont débattu aujourd'hui. Comme vous savez, la procédure et aussi les contenus de nos décisions par rapport aux sanctions liées à la situation en Ukraine n'a pas changé. C'est-à-dire que normalement, les États membres prennent une décision qui est liée à l'implémentation, à la mise en œuvre des accords de Minsk. Les accords de Minsk sont pour nous la façon de résoudre les conflits. L'Allemagne et la France, dans certaines façons, représentent l'Union européenne en lien direct avec nous dans les formats Normandie. Ça s'est passé déjà, si je ne me trompe pas, 2-3 fois que dans les conseils européens, les deux chefs d'État et de gouvernement de la France et de l'Allemagne, ensemble avec moi, donnent leur opinion sur l'état de mise en œuvre des accords. Et après, j'imagine pas pendant le conseil, mais normalement ça s'est fait après, une décision est prise. Je dois constater qu'il n'y a pas de réelle avancée sur la mise en œuvre des accords, et donc j'imagine que la décision va être prise dans le sens d'une continuation de l'état actuel des sanctions, mais bien sûr, ça va être débattu par les États membres, j'imagine, après le Conseil européen de la fin de la semaine. On a le temps jusqu'à la fin de juillet pour l'extension des sanctions.
Thank you very much. Vladimir Dobrovolsky from Russian News Agency Syria Novosti. High Representative, I have got a question on Syria, because today there was a downing of the plane, or the Syrian plane, by the coalition, and then the Russian Foreign Ministry, Russian Defense Ministry suspended the deconfliction mechanism with the United States. Do you have any reaction on that? Do you think it will have an impact on the Syrian talks? Thank you very much.
I just talked to Staffan de Mistura a couple of days ago about the perspectives of the talks. To me, even the recent developments today are the clear demonstration of the fact that there is no alternative to a political solution to be negotiated in Geneva under the UN leadership. As you know very well, the European Union is not a military player on Syria. Proud not to be, because we are not the ones that are fighting in Syria. We are the ones that are delivering humanitarian aid. We are bringing the children to school. We are trying to have access to all areas of the country. And this is the work that the European Union is ready to continue in support of a political agreement to be defined by the parties under UN leadership in Geneva. We are extremely engaged with different Syrian interlocutors in Geneva itself, including on the ways in which we can support, not only from a humanitarian point of view, but also from a reconciliation perspective locally and in a future on reconstruction. We believe that it is extremely urgent that the parties in Geneva find a political agreement that can put an end to those wars.
Thank you. Madam High Representative Sebastian Schobel, German Public Radio. A question on, since what has happened in Mali over the weekend and also the ongoing work with Iraq, do you see, as part of the global strategy, any role for the private security sector to, as a player in the global strategy in terms of providing aid for missions abroad, in terms of security advice? And a quick question on Russia, where do you stand on the sanctions against Russia because of the crisis in Ukraine? Should the sanctions be extended? The decision is coming up, I guess. Thank you.
On the second part of the question, I guess I already replied in French, so maybe you can simply translate for the sake of time. On security, if I understood correctly your question, you asked me if there is any role for the private security sector. No. No. We count on 28 member states that have security forces, both in the military and the civilian field, that have competences, dedication, commitment, professionalism that are amazing. All of them, all 28, have enormous resources in this field. The loss of lives we have experienced yesterday in Mali is a tragic but also maybe useful reminder for all Europeans on the fact that our men and women in uniform are already serving for peace and security and against terrorism in many different parts of the world, in Africa but also elsewhere. We have to be grateful for the service they are paying and also proud for the quality of the contributions they are bringing to the security of difficult places. That is not only a gesture of solidarity with our friends, in this case brothers and sisters of Mali, but it's also an investment in our own security. This to say, the European Union is increasing its work on security and defense, including our military and civilian missions and operations around the world. We have 15 of them. We have now a unified command in Brussels that in these hours has been following and coordinating actions in Mali. So we are increasing the EU profile on security and defense, always keeping in mind the European way to security, which is never a purely military approach. You take the example of Mali. We are there with a military mission to advise the Malian security forces. By the way, if you compare the reaction of the Malian security forces on the attack yesterday and the previous attack that happened in an hotel in Bamako, you would see that the security forces of Mali today are much more prepared and are taking the responsibility of their security in their hands directly, which is also an effect of our training work with them. So we are stepping up our work on security and defense. We're doing that with a mix of military, non-military, humanitarian development, economic investments, climate change action in all places where we are present. And we're doing it counting on our own forces that I can tell you today at 28, tomorrow at 27, are more than sufficient to make the European Union a security provider worldwide.
Final question, please be short and to the point.
Monsieur Ayash Deraju de la chaîne Al Jazeera. Revenons à la crise du Golfe, Madame Mogherini. On a entendu que vous soutenez les efforts du Koweït, mais on aimerait bien savoir votre réaction à propos du blocus imposé contre un peuple, pas uniquement un État.
Do you mind if I answer in English? Je vais essayer en français. C'est clair pour nous que, comme je dis, les différences et même les éléments de friction, de tension ou de désaccord entre différents États doivent être résolus par des moyens politiques, dialogue, engagement, je dirais en anglais, et pas avec des mesures prises unilatéralement. On est particulièrement préoccupé pour l'effet que ces mesures peuvent avoir sur la région, comme je dis, surtout sur les citoyens qui ont double citoyenneté, les familles, mais aussi sur les liens économiques de sécurité qui existent dans le Golfe, qui lient les États du GCC dans une façon très forte, très solide. Et comme je l'ai dit, comme Union européenne, on a l'intérêt à voir cette crise résolue dans la façon la plus rapide possible, par des moyens de dialogue et d'engagement politique, et surtout sans escalade progressive et sans des effets sur les régions voisines ou sur des crises qui sont en cours et sur lesquelles il faut au contraire plus de coopération entre les États de la région et de la part des États de la région avec le reste de la communauté internationale. Merci.
Thank you very much. We really need to wrap up to continue with the Eastern Partnership Ministerial meeting, but before we wrap up, there are copies of the first report on the implementation of global strategy made available also for you here in the room. Thank you very much.